shop, guys. It's been a while since I made a video. In fact, the last video I made, I was shortening the frame on that truck. As you can see, all of that is done. I've taken lots of pictures and posted lots of pictures, but haven't done many videos. So today, what we're going to take a look at is the air ride. I installed these separate air valves and I'm just having trouble with them leaking. Like I've got, not necessarily the air valve leaking, but I've got some fittings that are leaking, I think. So what I'm gonna do is I've purchased an Accuair, the VU4 manifold, and I'm gonna replace that. And I ordered this kit ahead of time. I ordered it last summer. Really didn't get it installed until this spring or early summer. So of course, like most people, I was on a budget and I ordered this, but I'm not real satisfied with it. Maybe there's something, you guys could comment and tell me something that I'm doing wrong. What I actually did is when I installed these air valves, I even put in these little valves here just to slow down the air. When I put air to it, it was just going up way too fast. So I installed these. I also installed these air pressure sensors so that my gauge, I bought a Dakota digital gauge that will read 4-corner air ride. So I installed that here. So as you can see, I have tons of fittings that could potentially leak. And I've tested, I've removed a couple of these sets, put them back on. I've used the thread locker, but I've also doubled it up and used thread locker and tape, but I'm still having a little bit of leaking issues. So I'm gonna start by removing all of these extra fittings so that I can get down to one air manifold. I do believe I'll probably have to, I think I might have a little leak from the drain valve here, so I'm gonna try to replace that as well. This one has an O-ring on it, and I've noticed that last time I took it out, the O-ring was, a little piece of it was shredded off, so I might go to a metal to metal. They have one that's like a brass or copper, I think it's brass, and it has a beveled fit, so that might work better. We'll see. This is controlled by an AVS 7-way switch, which works pretty well. You can see my gauge over there. It's not lit up, but right there next to the temperature gauge is the Dakota digital gauge for the air ride system. So my plan, I think, is to eventually get a level air ride on this, and that'll be updated later. Right now, I'm gonna put in this air manifold. Okay, so let's see where I left off here. So I started taking all the lines loose. These are push to lock. They push in there and lock, so if you hold that collar in all the way, you can pull the line out. And I marked all of my wires headed up to my gauge to make sure that gets hooked up correctly. And I'm gonna take off all these valves. I've got to undo some wiring first. Then I can take off all these valves and get rid of all those extra fittings. A little backstory on the truck. I bought it a couple years ago. It is a 72 C20 GMC, my favorite front end. When I bought the truck, it was running and driving, had a 350 in it, automatic transmission, and I used it for a few months, and then I really have wanted to build one of these for quite a few years. I wanted, in previous videos that I'll be posting too, I cut out, made a Z cut here underneath the drivers, or underneath the cab, I guess, and then 8 inches off the back. This truck is on air ride, obviously, because that's what I'm working on, so that was kind of redundant, but it is on air ride. I did put 2-inch drop spindles on the front, has disc brakes. I did install an LS. Now, I know a lot of you guys probably give me some flack for carbureting an LS, but I did it mostly for the look. I wanted it to kind of give that old Chevy 350 feel, and which I think I accomplished that pretty well. After driving it a little bit though, I think I'm gonna probably switch it over to fuel injection. I don't really want a plastic plenum up here, so I'm probably gonna maybe go with like a Phytech or one of those low-rise aluminum, maybe a black aluminum. But I'll still keep those Chevrolet valve covers on there. Still gives it that nice look. The interior is pretty much stock right now. The seat, booster seat as well. I plan on redoing the seat this winter, maybe adding some carpet. There's sound deadener in it. So the plan is right here, let's get all of these valves out of the way. I tried to tuck the wiring up here, run it in a braided sleeve from, I got those from Wire Care. They're really nice, by the way. So I'm gonna work on this and probably just time lapse it and show you. So when I first hooked all of these valves up, like I said previously, it went up and down really fast. So I started researching, how can I slow this down a bit? And so I installed these valves. I played around with those so that it was fairly even side to side. But also in the exhaust, I installed these little mufflers. They even have, I took them out because it did quiet it down enough without those in, but there is a piece that screws in the end. You can see it goes all the way through. But you can adjust the flow of the air being released as well. So I really like those mufflers. Pretty sure I can adapt those mufflers to this air manifold from Accuair. Those guys were great, by the way. Helped me figure out how I could just kind of build this piece by piece to keep in my budget. I originally bought this kit: compressors, tank, 8 valves, fittings, bags, and it was for a truck, so it had the correct mounts for the front A-arms, and it had the universal mounts for the back. So I was able to make all of that work. Then I added on the gauge and the sensors. Well, those are pricey. I think these sensors are 30 or 40 bucks a piece. That includes the wire. They give you plenty of wire, which is nice. And then the gauge, oh man, it was maybe 250 bucks for a 4-corner. So after doing all that, I probably, looking back, should have just bought a complete system from Accuair or someone else that just had everything the way I wanted to do it. But we're at this point, so we're gonna move forward. So I'm gonna disconnect all of these grounds that are running from the solenoids. Another thing too, I realized, I have my 7-pin switch for the air ride. It's hooked up to a keyed power, which I don't really like. Usually, inevitably, I turn the truck off and then I want to air it out. So I think what I'm going to do is hook that up so that it is just full-time power. And that way, even with the truck off, I can at least air it down. Well, I'll be able to air it up as well. But either way. Now, of course, the compressor, I don't want that really running until I've got keyed power or have the truck actually running. Drain that battery. That was a little bit painful. nicer. This camera here, I'll show you. All right, so 4 ports here. I'll probably block off the 2 middle ones. I'll run my lines from the 2 outer ones because they come in the side of the block. I can make a nice little curve there. Block off those 2, then the other 4 lines will come out the back. The sensors will be on this side, so that'll keep that pretty clean and neat. And then it just has a nice, I bought a pigtail adapter from AVS that adapts the VU4 manifold to the 7-pin switch. If you have a 9-pin switch, they have one for that too. And the nice thing, I mean, you can order it any length you want. The shortest length was 10 foot, so that's what I ordered. I don't remember the lengths, but I want to say maybe 10, 15, and 20. That would make sense, but I'll show you that VU4 block from Accuair. All right. So here it is. Look at that. So it comes with fittings and some plugs there. But if you look at this, look how nice and neat that is compared to everything there. That's just that's a lot. And yet this, nice. So 1, 2, 3, 4 ports coming out. Sensors on one side. You've got an in and an exhaust. Same here, in and exhaust. So then I have inside the truck here, this is the pigtail I told you about. So this will adapt the VU4 to my 7-pin switch. And there you have it. I'm gonna get started. I went up and I picked up some longer screws to go through here because I'm gonna put a little spacer, these little black spacers underneath, just to keep it up off of the floor. I think it'll keep it a little nicer. I think that'll look a little neater. I was gonna go with a mount, maybe that mounted it up at 45 degrees, but I decided not to. Here's all my fittings. Picked up some more sealer, little thread tape. A lot of times I'll double that up, seal lock and thread tape, just to cover my bases. New drain valve for the tank itself, because I think I had a little leak right there as well. All right. So I think I'm going to get started by marking and drilling where I want this to be mounted. Tricky part is here, well, you see these holes in it. It's going to be hard to go through. I guess if I had, maybe I'll use my all pick. I've got one of those that'll reach through. Here, this one might work. Yeah, that should work just fine. So I think I'll put a little tape down on the floor, and then we'll start marking where I want this to sit. I can get all those fittings mounted in there. Get my tools in there so I don't have to climb in and out a bunch. So I want this to sit right here in the middle, and you know, with the ribs of the bed, I just wanted it to so it would sit flush. I got those spacers, lift that up off there just a little bit, try to space it between these two, make it look nice and neat. I thought about, like I said, mounting it maybe up here to 45, and I might still change that eventually, but all this is going to be hidden anyway. It's not something that you'll see on a regular basis, so as long as it's nice and clean and solid. There is a rib, like a support beam underneath this bed, about a hand width back. stops it somewhere about that bolt. So I think if I put it here, I'll be able to get to it easy. These thread lock nuts on there just fine. So let's work on getting this squared up and mounted where I want it. Okay, a little tape to start. That way I can see the scratches from where the awl is, marking it right about there. Oh yay, get some parts. UPS man's here. Now I've got all 4 corners marked. I'll get those drilled. Yeah, it's gonna clear just fine. That'll be perfect. All right. So it has all these ports numbered. Exhaust in. I don't know if you can see, it goes all the way through. So if I have this going out to the bag, then this side will just be my sensor. That'll go to my gauge. So I'll probably run these mufflers on here for the exhaust, but this is 1/4 inch and these are 3/8. So I ordered a couple fittings. I'll probably get them in Amazon tomorrow. And then I can put that exhaust in there, but that's not a big deal right now. So we'll start by getting these put on. Let's see, they already sent it with a little bit of thread locker. I tend to overbuild, overdo. So we're gonna put a little bit more on it and a little tape. Now, I don't know, you guys might think this is overkill. And I do want it to look clean. Definitely don't want to clamp this aluminum block into the vise or anything, so we're just going to tighten everything up here on the bench. Don't want to really over tighten it, but I do want it nice and snug. All right, so after another trip to the hardware store, that's I would say that's par for the course, right? Anytime you're doing something like this. All the ends are, sorry, these are all the outs to the bags. The ends are here. That's in from the tank. And then I have all my sensors here. I had to run back up to the hardware store and get some bushings, 1/4 to 1/8 inch bushings for those sensors. So now I think I'm ready to set this in there, start getting it mounted and plumbed. Let's set just up off of that a little bit. Nice clearance. Yeah. Man, that's such a cleaner setup. Now the fittings that I got from Accuair have a nice little, I don't know if it's called a ferrule. The center goes in the inside diameter of that. So that's nice and sturdy. Gives it a little extra support there. Okay, so here's that wiring harness I bought that'll go to the 7-pin AVS. So I'm going to get the other plug and look at it. There's a little notch here, but there's no notch on this. So it will probably go in either way. Okay, yeah. So see the other plug has that little notch on top, so you know which way it plugs in. But it also shows me that these two outside and the plug, these two outside holes are not being used, which will also match the top side of this one. It's not being used, so I know that's the top side. Always good to double check that stuff. Okay. So this is 10 foot. I don't need 10 foot. I need about 2 feet. But I'm going to hide it kind of behind the tank there. Once I get the bed floor in, it won't be a big deal, but I just hate to cut it in case, I don't know, in case I need to, in case I change something in the future. Just never know. So we're not gonna cut it. I could though, but we're not. And Accuair sent this nice wiring color-coded piece. Unless, so let's see. They have, so yellow is the same as their white and blue. So white and blue is down solenoid 1. And they don't have left, right, or front or back. They have solenoid 1, but it's marked here. Like all of these wires on the Accuair, they're like white and blue, white and purple, white and brown, white and orange, and so on. But the adapter plug, they're just, you can see they're just color-coded blue, yellow, purple. So I think they're going to match up, but we're going to double check just to make sure. few things. Each port on this manifold is labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4, just this way. And as you see from this card, if you can see, 1 is driver front, 2 is passenger front, 3 is driver rear, and 4 is passenger rear. So I had these lines coming in differently. I had the 2 back ones flip-flopped, and anyway, I moved these around, and on my wiring I changed 2 and 4. And I didn't have to do the wiring. I could have changed this, but I wanted these lines to look neat and uniform coming out of here. So I opted to change the wire, routing all of this extra wire behind the tank. I've taken off the keyed switch to the 7-pin air ride switch, and I'm going to run a power wire to that, so it'll work even with the key off, just so when the key's off I can lower the truck and I don't have to worry about it. Right now I'm lengthening the wire on the ground so that it'll run over here. I'm going to run it under the block and make it look nice, kind of loop around to the ground there. I'm using these butt connectors that have heat shrink on the end so that they are going to help be weather tight. And then I'm also going to put some of this wire wrap on the ground so it'll just look a little neater, kind of match everything else that's going on back here. I have a short piece of that, so I'll finish this up. Just trying to route this ground wire underneath the block. And then it's going to come up. Here's fine. I like to run a little bigger gauge on my ground. So they have 2 grounds going in here. So I'm running a little, I don't know what gauge this is. I want to say it's maybe 12 or 14. Give that a nice little tug to make sure everything is solid. I have a nice little torch that I ran out of fluid on, and it heats these up super fast. But this will work just as well. Some people use a heat gun, which is fine. Just make sure that it's nice and kind of becomes translucent as it forms. Takes that blue color out of it, and as it shrinks down to the smallest size there. Alright, run this wire underneath, and then it's going to come around. Too many things going on here. And attach to the ground, probably in the middle. So I think that's the only ground on that side I'll have. So length looks like here. And a nice little loop. There. So these ring connectors, I have 2, also have the heat shrink on it. Get a nice weather tight seal. Before I get too crazy, I'm going to try to put that, there it is. Probably should have done that before I cut it. So I have enough here. I'm gonna cut this little piece off. When you put these on, this splits apart, it rolls open. Just, it's a little bit tedious to get the wire up in there, but if you can start it in the end and just run it up in there, pull it through. Sometimes we're not going to be. See, I'm going to have trouble when I get to that connector, so I will have to. We'll just have to split it open and put it in there. That's fine. Probably add a small clamp or two here as well as here. Got to loop around and be nice. Loop that around as well. Got these little stainless steel straps with their rubber lines. They don't cut into the wire. Those work really well. It, and I have one of them that's leaking. It leaked out overnight. One of my fittings, I put a little soap and water on it and saw that it was bubbling at one of the fittings, and it's this back driver's side. So I'm going to replace that fitting this morning and then get it back up and running, but works really well. I'm going to replace that one fitting. That's the nice thing about these push to connect connectors. Slides right out. I thought that this line had maybe a little bit of a burr or something on it, so I trimmed a little bit off and tested it again, and it was still leaking. So I don't know if maybe the O-ring in here is damaged or what it is, and possibly replace the O-rings, but I have some extra fittings, so I'm just going to throw a whole new fitting in, so I don't have to worry about it. You can see that I routed my wire that goes to the 7-pin switch. Put some nice little clamps there. It really is pretty quiet compared to those 8 valves. I don't even think I'm going to put the mufflers on there. I did buy some mufflers, but I don't think I'm going to worry about it. Pretty happy with how that turned out.